This week, I went to dinner with someone who, as I discovered halfway through the meal, had the flu. This person was eating with us, drinking with us, and coughing in our general vicinity throughout the entire meal. It is almost certain that one of us will get sick from this, and it will of course be rude to blame this person for getting us sick, despite the fact that their actions led to an entirely predictable outcome. That's why this week, I'd like to focus on exactly that. Predictably bad outcomes. This year, Donald Trump created a secret police force out of ICE. These secret police, these masked men with no warrants and no badges, immediately set out to fulfill Trump's campaign promise for mass deportations, kidnapping students and children and little old ladies off the streets. They took some of these people to concentration camps, like Alligator Alcatraz. Others they spirited away to a concentration camp in El Salvador, hoping they'd never be seen or heard from again. This year, Donald Trump installed his former defense attorney, Pam Bondi, as the Attorney General of the United States. This person immediately set out to fulfill Trump's campaign promise of releasing the Epstein list, the not-so-secret list of the rich and famous who flew with the notorious sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein on his private jet. Well, I say immediately, but before she could release the files, she reportedly made staffers at the Department of Justice pore over the documents and flag all mentions of Donald Trump. And actually, after they saw how many times Donald Trump showed up in the Epstein files, Attorney General Pam Bondi realized maybe she doesn't want to release the Epstein files after all.
Cut the cameras. Deadass.
In fact, according to Pam Bondi, maybe those files don't even exist.
In February, you made a public claim that the Epstein client list was, quote, sitting on my desk right now for review, end of quote. You then produced already public information and no client list at a major media event hosted at the White House. Attorney General Bondi, why did you publicly claim to have the Epstein client list waiting for your review and then produce nothing relevant to that claim?
Senator Durbin, if you listen to my entire clip on that, I said I had not reviewed it yet, that it was sitting on my desk along with the JFK files, the Martin Luther King files, and I said I had not yet reviewed it. And if you see our memo on Epstein, you will see, our memo on Epstein clearly points out that there was no client list, our July 6th memo.
This year, Donald Trump appointed RFK Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services. RFK Jr., a man who looks and sounds like a whoopee cushion with bronchitis, has a history of making false claims about vaccines. That history includes his trip to Samoa in 2019. During this trip, RFK Jr. lied about the MMR vaccine to help convince hundreds of people not to vaccinate their newborns. This contributed to a measles outbreak, which killed over 80 people. That guy, who told people not to get vaccinated for measles right before they died of measles, is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And he's spending his time telling people that Tylenol makes babies autistic. Republicans want you to believe 1,000 lies. But more importantly, they want you to stop believing in truth. They want you to believe everything is up for debate and that nothing is ever right or wrong or predictable. But we still, despite claims to the contrary, live in a world ruled by cause and effect, which means that when you go to dinner with the flu, we can predict that people will get sick. When you put a vaccine denier in charge of HHS, we can predict fewer people will get vaccinated and then people will die, just like in Samoa in 2019. When you put Donald Trump's personal defense attorney in charge of the Department of Justice, we can predict she will put Donald Trump's personal interests ahead of justice. When you elect the Mass Deportations guy to the Oval Office, we can predict kidnappings, killings, and concentration camps will follow. Republicans are in the grips of a cult, which wants to mystify everything from mail-in voting to fluoride in the tap water. Public policy is not rocket science, but neither is it witchcraft. We can look at the results of a policy and determine whether or not it works. We know, for instance, that fluoride, or more specifically fluoride compounds like fluorosilicic acid, can at low levels be safe for consumption and incredibly beneficial for dental health. We know that getting the MMR vaccine as a child protects nearly everyone from measles, a deadly and debilitating disease. Maybe once these questions were up for debate, but no longer. We now have answers to these questions. But Republicans want you to believe that these answers were created by some shadowy cabal, rather than academics and researchers at the university down the road. But if we give up on truth, if we give up on cause and effect, we may as well give up on democracy. If RFK Jr.'s conspiracy theories about the MMR vaccine are worth the same as decades of academic research, then the American experiment isn't worth the parchment it was founded on. Because the basis of a government of, for, and by the people is the idea that through trial, error, research, and adaptation, we, the people, can figure this stuff out. We can govern ourselves. Fascists don't believe in that experiment. Fascists don't believe in self-governance. Fascists don't believe in facts or truth or figuring things out. They believe in power, which they covet greedily. They don't trust academics because they can question politicians when they lie about and mispronounce acetaminophen.
First, effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay?
They don't trust independent attorney generals because they can hold corrupt politicians accountable. And they don't believe in things like habeas corpus or due process. The fascists believe they should hold plenary power over who can live in this country and who can't, who can protest and who can't, who can tell jokes on late-night television and who can't. Listen, I'm not really mad at the person who came to dinner sick. In the long run, it's not that serious. It struck a nerve because so many of our leaders act bewildered when bad things happen on their watch, like these things were entirely unpredictable, when they're the ones who created the bad situation in the first place. Since it's the fall, I'd like to try to put this into college football terms. I'm from Arkansas, and our football season went sideways fast. After losing in heartbreaking fashion to Memphis, and in soul-crushing fashion to Notre Dame, we fired our head coach, Sam Pittman. After that, we elevated our offensive coordinator to interim head coach. That offensive coordinator is none other than Bobby motherfucking Petrino. Yes, the same guy who, the last time he was head coach at Arkansas, got into a motorcycle wreck with his 20-something-year-old mistress, who he set up with a job in the athletics department, potentially violating several laws and moral codes in the process. That very same Bobby Petrino is now back at the helm at the University of Arkansas, at least for the time being. I don't know how the next few months are going to go for the Razorbacks, but what I do know is that sometime in the coming months, an athletic director somewhere in America is going to hire Bobby Petrino to be the head coach of their football team. Here's what's in store for that program. First, Bobby Petrino is going to recruit some great offensive talent. Second, he is going to put together an offensive game plan that scores a ton of points right off the bat. Who knows or even cares what the defense will do? That's not Bobby's problem. Third, he will win between 6 and 10 games a year and go just about 500 in bowl games. And last, he will create a culture that is so toxic that it will leave the program in disarray for years to come after he is inevitably fired. This is not guesswork, and it's not divination. It's just what happens when you hire Bobby Petrino. And I'm sick and tired of people in power creating Bobby Petrino-ass situations and then acting surprised when they get Bobby Petrino-ass results. Allow me one more example from the world of public education. 2025 is the first year AR Learns, the state's voucher scheme which allows parents to use public funds for private school, will expand eligibility to every student in Arkansas. Josh Cowan, an expert on charter schools and voucher programs, wrote the following about such universal programs back in 2023. Quote, "Data from traditional voucher programs has indicated that the larger the program, the worse the results tend to be. And new reports indicate that most users of expanded voucher programs were never in public school to begin with, either because they were in private school already, homeschooling, or beginning as kindergartners." End quote. Last month, Baker Kurus at the Arkansas Times wrote about Arkansas Learns. He details how the program, whose budget has skyrocketed past $300 million, has lived up to Cohen's expectations. He writes, quote, "More than 80% of the voucher students in the first 2 years of the program didn't come from traditional public schools. They were already in private school or homeschooled or were new kindergartners who were probably headed that route anyway. This huge new expense to the state budget will not have a measurable positive impact on student learning. So far, there is no indication vouchers are boosting academic performance for disadvantaged kids. Instead, they're giving private school and homeschool families a tuition subsidy paid by Arkansas taxpayers. End quote. Arkansas learns a few $100 million for absolutely no benefit. What am I doing here? Why am I beating this dead horse? Why is it so important to me that you know the bad things that are happening right now were predictable? Well, because, like some kind of fool, I still believe in the American experiment. I still believe in democracy. I still believe, despite it all, that we can work together and figure this stuff out. But if we're ever going to do that, we must learn from our mistakes and stop doing things that predictably lead to bad outcomes. We gotta stop touching red-hot stoves, stepping on pissed-off rattlesnakes, and going to dinner when we have the flu. We have to stop letting corrupt politicians funnel public dollars to private schools. We have to keep vaccine skeptics out of public health and secret police off our streets. And for the love of all that is good and holy, we have to stop giving Bobby Petrino a job. Thanks for listening. This is Arkansas Traveler. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and go Hogs.